You've heard it before, right? You are God. But if that's true, why do you still wake up feeling empty, disconnected, or worse, like a fraud in your own spiritual journey? Here's the brutal truth. Most people who think they're awake are actually more asleep than ever. They've swapped one illusion for another, wearing a shiny new spiritual mask while still feeling lost inside. And no one talks about this. No one tells you that the path to awakening isn't all light and bliss. It's confusion, silence, and a deep questioning of everything you've believed. That's where this video begins. Because what if the real reason you feel so lost is because you've forgotten how you chose to forget? What if the emptiness isn't a flaw in your journey, but the doorway to your divine self finally cracking through? You're not broken. You're not behind. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, but only if you're ready to stop seeking outside and start reclaiming the inner throne that's always been yours. In this video, I'll reveal what no one's told you about awakening, separation, and the voice in your head that keeps you trapped. And once you see it clearly, you'll never feel lost again. 1. The illusion of separation. He didn't realize how much of his suffering came from a single belief, that he was separate from others, from life, from God. And yet, this illusion had been silently driving his actions for decades. The moment he saw himself as just a man, struggling in a world that didn't care, he gave his power away. But what if that feeling of separation was just a glitch in perception, something taught, not true? From the time we're kids, we're trained to believe we're just this body, this mind, this name. But that belief forms a cage. A man can have everything, family, money, respect, and still feel deeply lost because deep down he thinks something is missing. That missing is always the connection to his divine self. It's never actually gone, but the noise of the world makes it feel far away. The key is noticing how this illusion shows up in daily life. Every time you think someone else has the answers, that your value depends on what you achieve, or that you're not enough as you are, that's the illusion of separation at play. And most men try to fix it by doing more, working harder, controlling everything. But what if it's not about doing at all? Real change begins when he pauses and questions. What if I'm not separate? What if I've never been? That's when something starts to crack open. He stops trying to chase God and realizes he's been sitting in God's lap the whole time. But of course, that realization doesn't last long when the mind gets involved, and that's where the next challenge begins. 2. Forgetting the self. He wakes up each day with 1,000 thoughts running through his mind, but none of them point to who he truly is. He's playing roles: father, husband, provider, friend. But somewhere along the way, the actor forgot he was wearing a costume. That's the real reason he feels lost. He hasn't disappeared. He's just buried under years of expectations and emotional noise that made him forget the divine self beneath it all. This kind of forgetting doesn't happen overnight. It builds up slowly, through disappointments, failures, betrayals, even success. Each event adds another layer to the mask, and before he knows it, he's reacting to life like a character in a script he didn't write. But that's not awareness. That's programming. The spiritual awakening begins when he stops identifying with the story and starts observing the storyteller. A practical way to reconnect is through moments of stillness. No, he doesn't need a Himalayan cave. He just needs 10 minutes of inner silence before the world grabs his attention. Journaling helps too, not the fluffy kind, but raw questions like, who am I pretending to be today? Or what truth am I avoiding? Over time, these questions shake the dust off the mirror of the self. And the more he remembers, the less control the external world has. He begins to feel rooted again, not in achievements, but in awareness. The confusion doesn't vanish instantly, but he starts feeling a quiet strength under the surface. And just as he finds that peace, something else gets in the way, the voice that's always been talking over it. 3. The voice of the mind. He hears it before he even opens his eyes in the morning, that inner voice listing problems, doubts, and unfinished tasks. It sounds like him, feels like him, but it isn't really him. That's the trick of the mind. It talks so much that he forgets there's a deeper awareness listening behind the noise. The mind narrates everything, yet says nothing about the truth of who he is, and the more he believes it, the more lost he feels. The mind's job is to analyze, compare, and predict. It feeds on fear and control, constantly warning him of what could go wrong. Even during peaceful moments, it finds a reason to worry. And while that used to feel like being responsible, now he sees it's just survival on repeat. The divine self doesn't speak like that. It whispers through presence, through inner silence. But that space is almost impossible to find when the mind won't shut up. Here's a practical shift. Start noticing the voice instead of obeying it. Every time he hears it say, "You're behind, you're not enough," or "They'll think you're a fraud," he can pause and simply ask, "Who's speaking right now?" That moment of awareness breaks the trance. Meditation helps, but so does walking in nature without his phone, or doing something creative with no outcome in mind. Anything that invites silence instead of thought. Soon, he'll realize something huge. His mind isn't the enemy. It's just been leading for too long. It's like a passenger who took the wheel and drove into chaos. When he puts awareness back in the driver's seat, things begin to shift. But right when he tries to slow down, another trap appears. The one that says he still has to find something outside to finally feel whole. 4. The trap of seeking. It starts off innocent. He just wants answers. So he buys a few books, watches a few videos, and starts meditating. But soon, seeking becomes an addiction, a new teacher, a new method, a new affirmation. Yet deep down, nothing really changes. That's the hidden trap, chasing awakening outside himself while ignoring the divine self that's always been within. And the more he seeks, the more lost he feels. The problem isn't the learning, it's the belief that the next thing will fix the emptiness. That if he just unlocks the right secret, everything will finally click. But truth doesn't work that way. Awakening doesn't come from gathering, it comes from releasing. Releasing the need to be fixed, releasing the idea that there's somewhere else to get to. In fact, the constant search is often what delays the arrival. There's a turning point when he realizes that stillness isn't something to find, it's something to fall into. One simple practice. Pick a moment each day where he does absolutely nothing. Not relaxing while scrolling, not journaling with a goal, just sitting, breathing, being. That's when awareness gets louder and the seeking loses its grip. That's when he feels the presence behind the questions, not just the urge to answer them. And in that quiet space, something beautiful happens. He stops needing life to give him anything. He starts noticing what's already here, the light in a stranger's smile, the way his breath grounds him, the freedom in just being. But then, another realization emerges. If he chose to forget all this, then maybe this whole journey has been part of something greater all along. 5. Divine amnesia and the game of awakening. It's easy to think something went wrong when life feels heavy. But what if nothing went wrong at all? What if forgetting was part of the plan? He didn't fall by mistake, he descended by choice. The divine self chose limitation, doubt, and even pain, not as punishment, but as a setup for awakening. Like a masterful story that starts with conflict to make the revelation meaningful, his soul knew this journey would only make sense from the inside out. Divine amnesia isn't failure, it's design. Imagine a man playing a video game. He chooses to forget the controls and starts from scratch to make the challenge real. Every obstacle builds him, tests him, matures him. The same happens in life. The separation he feels, the confusion, even the suffering, they're all part of the curriculum of remembrance, Not just remembering information, but remembering who he is beneath all the noise. Here's the twist. When he starts seeing life this way, everything changes. He doesn't curse the past anymore. He studies it. He doesn't resist his darkness. He investigates it. And he stops waiting for someone to save him. That's when real awakening begins. Because awakening isn't a moment. It's a process of taking full responsibility for the remembering. That's where his power returns, not outside of him, but right in the middle of what once felt unbearable. But even as he remembers, he still has to make a choice. Will he sit with that awareness quietly, or will he step into it like a king returning to his throne? This isn't about escaping the world, it's about mastering it from the inside. Because once he sees through the game, it's time to play it differently. And that shift begins with reclaiming something he forgot he ever gave away. 6. Reclaiming the inner throne. There comes a moment when he's tired of handing his power to everything outside of him. Tired of needing approval, needing the job, needing the right timing to feel secure. That's when he begins the real work, reclaiming the throne within. Not a throne of ego, but of awareness. The part of him that watches calmly, while the rest of the world spins. It's not about control, it's about remembering his natural state of inner authority. Reclaiming that throne means no longer waiting for the world to reflect his worth. It means he walks into every room knowing who he is without needing to prove it. This shift can be subtle. He still works, still loves, still shows up, but from a completely different place. From a center that doesn't wobble every time someone judges or misunderstands him. That's the mark of someone who's seated in their divine self. Not perfect, but grounded. One practical way to reconnect with that throne is through conscious reflection. At the end of the day, instead of scrolling or numbing out, he can sit with himself and ask, did I lead from my truth today or from fear? Keeping a simple journal with that one question can change his inner landscape. He'll start seeing where he bends to please, where he shrinks to fit in, and where he needs to rise again. And here's the magic. When he stands in that awareness, life starts to organize itself around it. People respond differently. Opportunities flow with less effort. Not because the world changed, but because he stopped being a follower of chaos and became a leader from stillness. And just as he stabilizes in this inner power, the next challenge calls, living it fully, moment by moment, without backing down. 7. Living as the God within. Now comes the part most people avoid, not remembering, but embodying. It's one thing to read about the divine self, and another to live from it. That means taking full responsibility for every thought, word, and energy he puts into the world. No more victim stories, no more blaming the past. Living as God within doesn't mean being perfect, it means being conscious. It's not some distant goal, it's a daily practice of choosing alignment. He'll feel the shift when he stops reacting and starts creating. Instead of saying, I hope this works out, he'll begin saying, let's see how I want to shape this. That's divine authorship. Every time he wakes up and sets an intention, every time he chooses patience over panic, every time he replaces doubt with presence, he's walking as the awareness itself. That's how the lost feeling dissolves, not with fireworks, but with quiet power. Practicality matters too. He can create rituals that support his inner God state. For example, starting the day with 5 minutes of gratitude, not just thinking it, but speaking it aloud, using powerful declarations like, I am the still point in the storm, or nothing is outside of me. Even setting reminders on his phone with phrases that anchor him back into presence. These small acts build a new identity rooted in inner silence and truth. And once this becomes natural, the game changes. He's no longer searching for meaning, he's expressing it. Life stops being a test and starts being a canvas. He leads not with force, but with presence. And while the world may still look chaotic, his inner kingdom stands untouched. But if he thinks this is the end of the journey, well, the introduction hasn't even begun. If you want to elevate your vibrations and manifest with more ease, I have prepared something special for you. Click the link in the first pinned comment and join us in the journey of awakening your inner mage.